So it is the TEGIWA Roadsports Series featuring the GAZ 116 trophy up next here at Croft for a 45-minute race where it's still a damp track, wet track in places, but I'm looking out of the window. I can't see that it's raining at the moment, so I suspect that as the course of this race goes on, the track will dry out, which should make for a very interesting 45-minute race. We have a very big grid of cars as well for this one. As I say, effectively two races in one, because you have the Roadsports cars at the front of the grid. They make up the first 27 spots, and then there's another 12 spots taken up by cars for the GAZ 116 trophy, which is having its second ever race here this afternoon at Croft Circuit. And it's something that is going to grow and grow, and eventually it will have its own standalone races, including a little bit later on this season. So a good mix of cars we'll have. They're being released out onto the circuit now, and it's a four-class championship, or four-class series I should say, the Roadsports Series. No championship points being awarded. So Class A, it's called Super GT, is for cars up to 300 brake horsepower per tonne, measured at the flywheel and the weight without the driver aboard. The GT class, Class B, is 240 brake horsepower per tonne. Class C, the Super Sport, up to 180. And the D class, the Sport class, is for cars up to 145 brake horsepower per tonne. And then the 116 trophy cars, they're effectively within their own class. It's a 45-minute race. It's a compulsory pit stop of at least 1 minute at some point between the 15 and 30-minute mark of the race. And there are certain drivers that have a small extra penalty during their pit stop, and that's drivers who've had success in previous races. So we'll advise you of those as the race goes on. As you see, some of the 116 trophy cars come out, and it's Bobby Trundley in the Team Brit car that is the fastest of those, or was the fastest of those in qualifying this morning. He also won the opening round of the series at Brands Hatch in April as well. But it is that fantastic looking BMW M4 of Andy Marston that's going to line up on pole position overall. And he did a lap time of a 1 minute 33.17 in qualifying. Obviously the track conditions have changed a little bit since then, so probably won't be quite able to maintain that speed. And next to him on the front of the grid is the number 122 car, or should be the 122 car. No, it's not. It's not there. It's the 125 car. I beg your pardon, of Darren Ball in the BMW E92 M3 that you can see there, but also promotes as well Matthew Weymouth up the grid. Right, okay, so yes, Darren Ball was in the wrong position, so there is a gap where Mark Kidman's VX220 should have been, but now Darren Ball is being reversed into his correct grid slot for this race. Brands Hatch, the opening race of the season, it was a win for Paul Cook in his E46 M3 from Matthew Weymouth in his E36 M3, so the older iteration, and it was decided by just 2/3 of a second. Chris Byallen, who's not racing here today, unfortunately, he had problems in testing yesterday. He was only another half a second behind those two. Those were the only finishes on the lead lap. Of course, Brands had a short circuit and quite a bit of lappery went on. But the nature of the Roadsports Series, because it's not a championship, is that you do get a range of different drivers lining up on the grid from time to time. So pretty full grid. Although shame, Andy, that we are missing that VX220 from the front row.
Yeah, it is. It's a car that probably would have gone quite well in the wet as well, I would have imagined. But yeah, it's a shame Mark Inman is not there. I believe we've also got the a couple more cars missing as well from the third row of the grid. Excuse me, we do not appear to have the Ben Salmon BMW number 83 and also number 32 Leon Bidgeway's Lotus Exige. There is one Lotus Exige on the fourth row, which is the Simon Middleton started, Oliver Crease shared Exige 190, but the number 32 Leon Bidgeway car I don't think is there. Wayne Rothwell, though, who I believe was in doubt, is alongside in the Honda Civic Type R. So a couple of fairly high profile cars actually missing from towards the front of the grid.
Yeah, absolutely. As we get into the 1 minute countdown before the cars go off onto the green flag lap. Again, it might be 2 green flag laps. We'll wait and see what happens. Should be an interesting race because, as I say, this class is based on power to weight ratios, and in these kind of conditions, possibly some of the less powerful cars might come into their own a little bit. The advantage of the really quick things, 2 green flag laps is the sign that we can see being shown to the drivers as the green flag is waved. The green flag's being waved, but no one wants to go anywhere yet. So does that mean that the pole position man, Andy Marston, he finally fires up into life and the green flag lap can finally get underway? So a big grid of cars that we have here. We'll try our best to run you through the starting drivers as well as we look through the grid in just a moment. And you can see the 116 trophy cars, which do look really beautifully turned out, don't they, going through shot, and I'm sure they're going to produce a really good race, just as they did at Brands Hatch last time out. So let's have a look at the grid. So it is Andy Marston on pole position, Mark Inman sadly not there alongside him, Darren Ball and Matthew Weymouth in their BMWs on the second row of the grid. Then you've got Chris Morton in the Corsa, and it's Simon Middleton starting the Lotus Exige, Leon Bidgeway and Wayne Rothwell on the fourth row of the grid, or we thought that Leon Bidgeway was missing. Onto row 5, you've got the car of Stephen Cunniff, that's the Civic, and the Lee Piercy BMW 328i, then Hugo Holmes, and the car started by Alistair Lindsay, the Honda Civic Type R. Then you've got John Gardner in the Volkswagen Golf, and the Josh Harmer Ginetta G40, then Jamie McHugh in the Porsche 944, and Liam Hamilton in the Astra. Row number 9 of the grid is Amanda Black starting the Ginetta G40 GTS, and Andrew Waters starting the BMW 330. Chris Heathcote on row 9 next to Pete Seeley. It's Alex Hall starting the Vauxhall Corsa next to Pip Hammond, and then Stan Palmer next to him on row number 11. Craig Emerson and Jonathan Atkinson in their respective BMWs make up row 12. And then the 13th row of the grid, you've got Chris Fellows starting the Ginetta G27, and Luca Diella starting the Honda Civic Type R, with then the Joe Ben Fiesta next up. Then you get into the 116s. So Bobby Trundley is in the number 67 car on the outside of row 14. And he starts on a separate row next to Howard Hunt. Then it's John Coburn and Chris Slater and Lewis Whiten Turner. He will start 32nd. Ahead of Anthony Seddon and Rory Baptiste, with James Reddish starting the car that will be right towards the back of the field, although by my reckoning, a few more cars joining on at the back as well. Ben Wilcox, Alan O'Neill and Simon Murray and Richard Newton will round out the other cars that we'll have right at the back of the grid. So we should have 39. I think we've probably lost a couple, so I think it'll be 37, Andy, that take the start.
That's still ample, isn't it? There's going to be lots to watch here, I think, over the 45 minutes, which, from my experience, tend to fly by fairly rapidly. Fascinating situation at the front of the grid. As you said, it's the more powerful Class A cars, the BMW M4 of Andy Marston and the two M3s of Darren Ball and Matthew Weymouth, who are first, second and third on the grid. But then from fourth on the grid is the leading Class B car, the Vauxhall Corsa, of all things, of Chris Morton. Now, that car will not be as powerful as the BMWs just ahead of it, but front-wheel drive might be a bit more stable in the wet, and it's much, much lighter, so it will be able to get through the tight and technical corners, particularly in these damp and greasy conditions, maybe a little bit quicker than some of the rear-wheel drive BMWs around it. So keep an eye to Chris Morton in the Class B Vauxhall Corsa. The Lotus alongside him of Simon Middleton is also running in Class B. So yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think some of the lower classes of car may have an outside chance of troubling the more powerful cars in these conditions.
Yeah, last year the race was won by Caterham 7. I don't think we've got any Caterhams on the grid this year. It's a much bigger field than we had last year as well. I'm very pleased to say for the TEGIWA Roadsports Series race. There are some of the 1.6i N45 BMW 1 Series. These are the cars that were manufactured originally between 2004 and 2006, running a 5-speed manual gearbox, a GAZ damper kit, standard brakes, Nankang tyres they run as well. But this huge queue of cars heading into the complex on the second of the 2 green flag laps ahead of the 45-minute race. It's going to be quite a spectacle as these cars head down to Clairvaux for the first time, isn't it?
Yeah, and particularly in a 45-minute race, no heroics are really required into that first corner, but you know that some people will try to take advantage, particularly in these conditions, but I think the conditions are going to start to improve, he says confidently, because it is starting to brighten up now. I wouldn't exactly call it sunny, but it's a little bit less ominous if you look skyward, so slightly brighter conditions, that will raise the ambient and therefore the track temperature, and with some 40-odd cars or 30-odd cars circulating, that should start to dry out the surface of the track as well. So it could be an evolving circuit as we go on. They won't need to change tyres, none of them will run slick tyres, but still, as the conditions change, so too will the ideal line, and perhaps the advantage might swing back to some of the more powerful cars.
Just quickly to mention the pit stop penalty, so drivers that have gone well in earlier races, we've only had one so far, that was at Brands Hatch, get a bit of a penalty. So Matthew Weymouth, number 29, he has a 10-second penalty. Jonathan Atkinson, number 57, has a 15-second penalty. Number 60, the Pierces, they have a 10-second penalty. And then it's 5 seconds each for number 69, Wayne Rothwell, and for number 172, Chris Heathcote as well. So that just means they have to stop for a little bit longer when they make their pit stops. Otherwise, it's a standard 1 minute pit stop, and as I say, that has to be taken at some point in the middle third of the race. So last few rows of cars just coming into position then for this 45-minute race. So there's now a car missing next to Alex Hall, and that's Sam Palmer's car just belatedly coming into position, the Honda Civic Type R. Alex Hall in his Nova, or not his Nova, in the Nova that he's sharing with Pip Hammer this weekend. So 5-second board goes up then. Get ready for the action for the second race of the season for the TEGIWA Roadsports Series race. The lights go out, so away they go, but the second roadman doesn't, and that's Chris Morton as he tries to get past Darren Ball, who stalled on the line. I think we've got away with that one really, because Darren Ball was not going anywhere for a good few seconds, was he? He has now, and it is the pole position man, Andy Marston, then that leads from Matthew Weymouth in second place at the moment, but that has meant there's been a bit of a shake-up further back as they head down through Clairvaux for the first time. So it's the Porsche then that's in third place. That's Wayne Rothwell, isn't it? Number 69 from row 4 of the grid. Yeah,
who nipped up the inside on the grass, I think, to avoid the stricken Darren Ball BMW and the Chris Morton Vauxhall Corsa, and is now starting to challenge the Simon Middleton started Lotus XT. So a really strong start there as they run down towards Tower Corner for the first time. In the background, I think I spotted there, Ian, that Chris Morton was now going slowly. I don't know whether he made contact with the back of Darren Ball's car at the line, but if he did, that may explain his sudden loss of pace.
Yes, certainly that car going slowly on the way into Tower Corner, but already pulling out a good lead then is the man from the West Midlands, Andy Marston, in this BMW M4 in the lead of the race from Matthew Weymouth, who was second at Brands Hatch last time out. He is in second place. In third place then, it's Wayne Rothwell in the Porsche, and then the rest of the field making their way through Sunny for the first one. There's Darren Ball, the black car with the green livery on the back, so we'll see exactly where he comes through at the end of lap 1, having stalled. We should be stalled on the grid. Down towards the complex they come then for the first time, and there's one going a bit wide there and spinning. That is the 129 car of Stephen Cunniff, isn't it, that's had a moment. He started on row 5 of the grid. He will rejoin, but he'll have lost most of the places, and one of the 116 trophy cars looks to be in trouble as well. And that is number 61, which is the car of Simon Murray, and it was being started, that one. In fact, it was being started by Simon Murray with Darren Millward taking over it.
Yes, so 1 or 2 unfortunately hitting early dramas. We'll watch for Chris Morton, who I can see out of the window is still running, but right at the back of the field and still going slowly. So I think he may be our first pit lane visitor. Perhaps Josh Barrett might be able to dig out the story there as the Corsa now comes into the pit lane. The rest of the field, they're working their way through Clairvaux. There go your leading group then. And a good start for the Porsches that were starting not that close to the front of the field. The Porsche Cayman of Wayne Rothwell has come from 9th, well, essentially 7th on the grid to be 3rd at the end of the opening lap. And then the Porsche Boxster of Hugo Holmes, who we saw making a great start from down in 12th on the grid, is up into 5th place at the end of the opening lap as well. So lots of shuffling, but now as drivers start to settle into a bit of a rhythm, we'll be able to see exactly who does have the pace once we get into a race situation.
Yes, so we have had a lap and a half of this race so far. The leader's heading up to Sunny, but let's see, can we go down, see what's going on with Chris Morton? Well, we can have a look at him there. He's sitting in the car, the 32-year-old from Bexley. And it looks like his race is over. The helmet's going to come off, isn't it? So we'll see if we are able to hear from Chris in a few moments, maybe.
Meanwhile, Ian, the leaders are about to come through to complete their second lap, and it is nose to tail, I can see, for the race lead. So Matthew Weymouth going after Andy Marston here and might be about to start challenging. They streak across the start-finish line past us as we watch on the screens the midfield runners, and one or two of those recovering from early dramas. And, well, everyone setting personal best laps. It's actually Hugo Holmes in the Boxster, who's up into 4th position, who has just set the fastest lap of the race. But the lead gap is now down to less than half a second. There is Chris Morton's Corsa. There is the car that's just set the fastest lap of the race. Hugo Holmes into 4th place now, pushing onwards, and he's catching the Cayman, although he had to catch a slide there through Hawthorn to ensure that he didn't end up pointing the wrong way. There are your race leaders, the much older BMW M3 of Matthew Weymouth, reeling in Andy Marston's M4.
Yes, also, though, watch for Darren Ball, because he was pretty quick on that last lap as well. Back up to 6th position, he made up another 2 places on that lap, having had those problems getting away from the line, so we need to watch out for him. But for the lead, yeah, only 0.4 of a second between these two at the start of the lap. It may have gone out a little bit, actually, during the course of the first half of this third lap of the race. But Weymouth it is that is chasing after race leader Andy Marston. Weymouth, the 47-year-old from Great Yarmouth, in the plant and toil hire business. He's been racing for about 8 years now, having started out racing in another series, originally in a 328i, switching to this M3 these days. That's a good battle between the two Porsches there, Wayne Rothwell and Hugo Holmes, and they are both in the same class as well, so that's a battle for the Class B honours as well, isn't it? For 3rd place overall, heading into the complex. So you've got Wayne Rothwell, number 69, you've got Hugo Holmes, number 24, heading into the hairpin to complete lap number 3. Yeah,
the Boxster looks the quicker of the two at this stage. And actually, I feel that if Hugo could get through, he might be able to go after the leaders, who themselves are almost overlapping as they cross the start-finish line. There's a yellow flag and a safety car, which is scrambled at the very last second, because someone must be off somewhere around the circuit. I can't say anything out of the commentary box, but there must be a car that is stuck in a dangerous position. So the safety car is called for early in this race. This will benefit some of those that are trying to make up lost ground after early issues, but not really good news for Matthew Weymouth, because it looked like he was just starting to mount a serious challenge for the race lead. This lets Andy Marston off the hook, conversely slightly, because he now gets a chance to gather his thoughts, catch his breath again, and try and think about executing a good safety car restart. But the cause of this safety car, I'm not too sure about.
No, but it does give us an opportunity to have a quick rundown on the order. So it's number 7, Andy Marston, leading then from number 29, Matthew Weymouth in 2nd place. Then it's the 2 Porsches, the Cayman of number 69, Wayne Rothwell, the Boxster of number 24, Hugo Holmes. Number 60 then, the Pierces are in 5th position. And then in 6th place it's the 125 car of Darren Ball. 7th, number 62, Liam Hamilton. 8th, the 101 car, which was started by Simon Middleton. 9th to number 25, Jamie McHugh, and 10th, the 316 car of Ivor Mayers and Andrew Waters, who started that car. As far as the 116 trophy is concerned, that's being led by number 3, Howard Hunt, from 67, Bobby Trundley, and the 18 car of long-time Armed Forces Race Challenge competitor, Chris Slater.
The suggestion seems to be that we have debris on the circuit up at Sunny, and and also the 61 BMW, which I think is also that part of the circuit, isn't it? Which is the Simon Murray started 116. So a combination of those two things, I think, is what has led to this safety car, and hopefully it shouldn't take too long to recover the car, or indeed the bits of car that have been sort of stranded in the middle of the road down at that part of the circuit. So that appears to be the reason for the safety car. I think that's the only car that we have lost, and yeah, everyone else now crawling around at much lower speed behind the safety car, but hopefully we'll get racing back underway before too much longer, Ian.
Yes, certainly that's the hope, as that 61 car is about to be recovered. But let's see if we can head down to the pit lane now and hear from Josh Barrett.
Thanks, Ian. We've got Chris Morton here. Unfortunately, didn't want to see you at this point in the race, Chris.
Not at this point particularly, but unfortunately just clipped the back of Darren. I think he stalled it on the line, and I've just called a puncher. So I'm hoping that I can get back out and at least get that record today, but obviously, you know, I'm not going to be able to compete for the win today, so it's just unlucky really.
It was such a small touch.
Do you know what? It felt more in the car, if I'm being honest. It was a bit of a crunch, but I'm just glad it was just a tyre. Yeah. But I see there's a safety car now, so, you know, never say never, but I think that's pretty much it for today.
Tell us a bit about your car, because it's much quicker than a normal Vauxhall Corsa.
It's had about 4 years of development. It's not so much the power, it's just the chassis and the brakes, and it's just a really well set up car. And I do it all myself as well, you know, so apart from the welding, but yeah, she does go well. Yeah.
I think last year you joined the 750 Motor Club. How have you been enjoying it?
It's a really good, you know, club, and last year I done it with James Birch in a white Corsa, and we was quite competitive. You know, I've learnt a lot from last year, and just obviously want to hone my skills this year on my own car, really.
Well, I think your team are ready to perhaps get you back out. So that was Chris Morton out of the Vauxhall Corsa. Unfortunately, got in that touch at the start of the race. Back to Ian and Andy.
Thanks very much, Josh. Yes, not the circumstances that we wanted to hear from Chris at all, but nevertheless interesting to hear about the development of that car, which used to be his neighbour's car, but he used to service at his garage, so quite an interesting story behind that one. Safety car lights are out, which is good news, as the car heads around through the right-hander at Sunny, which means that in 30 seconds or so we should be able to get back underway, having lost not too much time. We're on to lap 4 of the race now. Lap 5 will be completed, and we've had, 9 minutes of this race so far, so still 6 minutes to go, Andy, before the pit lane window opens as well. And often drivers and teams might quite like the safety car to coincide with the pit window being open.
Yeah, you can gain quite a lot of time, can't you, from pitting as the safety car comes out, because you essentially get a free pit stop. But it looks as though, unless we get another safety car, of course, we should have green flag pit stops, which is possibly a little bit safer as well. So the two BMWs at the head of the queue then are about to go back up to full racing speed. Andy Marston, the BMW M4, Matthew Weymouth in his E36 M3 BMW. And which of those two will have the better restart? It looked like it was Weymouth that was quicker before the safety car came out. After the restart, though, will he be able to find that sort of pace again? Well, across the start-finish line they go. The green flag is waving. Racing back underway here at Croft in the TEGIWA Roadsports Series and the GAZ 116 Trophy. And Andy Marston's BMW M4 tiptoes its way through what is now, rather than a wet Clervo, I think a greasy Clervo corner. And that arguably, Ian, is even more tricky for the drivers to get to grips with.
Yeah, it can be the worst of all conditions, can't it, really? It's neither fully dry nor fully wet. In between conditions, it'll be difficult all the way around the lap as well. Straight away, the two BMWs have put a bit of ground between themselves and the two Class B Porsches. So that's Matthew Weymouth going with the leading Andy Marston BMW down into Tower Corner for the first time. He's not really close enough to make a challenge, but the side-by-side for third place there, and it's Hugo Holmes trying to get up on the inside of Wayne Rothwell, and they have come out with Wayne Rothwell still in front, but only just, but they were fully alongside through Tower Corner that time. Now that's probably slowed them down a bit, and it's allowed Darren Ball, who's coming back through after that very poor start to the race, to get right on terms with them as well, and he will probably sort of gobble them up fairly quickly. He thinks about doing it into Barcroft. That's probably not going to work. Will he have a go into Sunny? No, he won't, but it's not going to be too much longer though, Andy, before Darren Ball is back up to P3, I suspect.
Yeah, he's already gained a place on this restart, hasn't he, at the expense of the Lee Piercy BMW that's dropped down into 6th. You can see that by black and yellow car in the background, but Darren Ball, arguably the main beneficiary of this safety car period. He was about, 15-16 seconds off the race lead earlier on, and now, well, at the restart, he was about 4 seconds back. It will maybe be a touch more than that after the first full racing lap after the safety car came in, but there you can see the green and black car, the BMW of Darren Ball, catching the two Porsches in front. Side by side for the race lead, though, we might be here just ahead of this little group. Look at that. Weymouth looking to the outside of Marston. Marston's car, though, maybe with a bit more straight line speed, but through the corners, Weymouth is certainly giving him a run for his money, isn't he?
He really is. It's a very good race between those two. Now, it looked like one of the Porsches took quite a deep line into Clervo that time, but they've both got through okay, but they do have Darren Ball right behind them. I expect he might try or might be able to get past on the back straight, out of the chicane, on the run down towards Tower Corner. What's happened to Weymouth though? He's fully alongside. That's what's happened to him. I couldn't even see him. He was fully alongside Andy Marston that time, down towards the right-hander at Tower Corner. Can he go all the way around the outside? The answer is no. He runs out deep on the exit of the corner, and he's a long way off. He's into the field. Matthew Weymouth's challenge, it was a brave one, but it's not come off for him, I'm afraid.
Well, he can take some solace in the fact that he is far from the first racing driver to find their way into that particular farmer's field. Some of the racing greats in UK motorsport have made exactly the same mistake, particularly in wet conditions. That will drop him well outside the top 5, though, unfortunately, behind this man, Darren Ball, who not only is now onto the podium, he's into second place because he's, of course, taken advantage of Rothwell's off, and he's gone past the 2 Porsches, the Boxster of Hugo Holmes and the Cayman of Wayne Rothwell, and so he is now into second position. Matthew Weymouth has rejoined a long way back. There he is, just behind the Astra of
Liam Hamilton,
it is, yeah, who's ahead of Pierce. No, Pierce is still there, excuse me. Yeah, Liam Hamilton 7th. So that's 7th position then, by my reckoning, for the man who half a lap ago was challenging for the race lead.
Yeah, absolutely. So we will see what he can do. There's a brave rabbit that has just gone sprinting across the track in front of the cars at the complex. Now, what's happening here, because Darren Ball has got the 4-second gap to make up to Andy Marston. On that lap, he was a bit slow in actual fact. He has been faster earlier on in the race though than the race leader. So it's Marston leading, Ball second, Wayne Rothwell third, then that man Hugo Holmes in the Porsche in 4th place. The Lee Piercy BMW 328i is in 5th. That leads its class. Matthew Weymouth then across the line in 6th that time, just ahead of Liam Hamilton, so he got back ahead before the end of the lap.
He has a few wild moments through the complex at the moment, but the race leaders down at Tower starting to spread themselves out now, but I do imagine that lead gap might start to come down now. Darren Ball was not quite as quick as Andy Marston in qualifying, but he was only 3.5 tenths off the pace in the dry. Now in the wet though, he seems to have good confidence, doesn't he? 4 seconds is the starting point for Darren Ball to try and chase down the race leading BMW M4. This then is the fight between the 2 Porsches for the Class B lead, and Wayne Rothwell, I think, has benefited slightly out of being overtaken, ironically there, by Darren Ball. He lost less time in being passed by the BMW, but Hugo Holmes seems to be closing back in on him again. This for 3rd place overall then. The red and white Boxster closing in all of the time, and there the blue BMW in 6th position is the recovering Matthew Weymouth. So quite a few drivers who expected to be fighting for the race lead in the very early stages are having to work their way back up after various issues in the first few laps.
The pit lane window is now open as well, with 30 minutes into this race, so drivers can make pit stops from now on for the next 15 minutes if they so choose. Worth mentioning, by the way, in Class D, it's Alex Hall in the Vauxhall course that will hand over to Vauxhall Nova, even that will hand over to Pip Hammond, that is leading Class D from Pete Seeley up in 14th overall. So he is going very well indeed. We'll see if we can pick him up a little bit later on in this race. Pit lane window open, but no one's dived for the pit lane yet.
No, I suppose after spending a lot of the first stint under safety car, then there's not much traffic around at the moment for the leaders, so they don't really have any incentive to pit just yet. And for those who are sharing the car, they'll want to get their money's worth, won't they? So they'll probably stay out till about half race distance, I would imagine. There is Weymouth, so he's into 5th now. He has gone past the Lee Piercy BMW 328i. And will chase after this Class B battle that is still going on through the first half of the lap. That seems to be where the Cayman has the advantage.
I mean, we've had a change of lead in the 116 trophy class in that Bobby Trundley, number 67, the Brands Hatch race winner, has gone through and taken the lead away from Howard Hunt. So Bobby Trundley, Brands Hatch winner, through into the lead of the 116 trophy class, but we've now got the number 18 car into the pits. That is Chris Slater. So this presumably is going to be his mandatory stop. Trevor Gregory of the 750 Motor Club there. You can see on the stopwatch in the background there to make sure that all of the pit stops are of the regulation 1 minute duration.
Rory Baptiste is in as well in the number 46 116 BMW 2. So a couple of the 116 trophy drivers electing to pit now. There are the 116 trophy cars who are running a bit further down the order, of course. And there the change for 4th position, because Matthew Weymouth is now amongst the Class B cars into the pit lane. In fact, is coming Hugo Holmes. So Hugo Holmes from second place in Class B, is one of the first of our overall front runners to elect to make a pit stop. So he makes his way down the pit lane as Matthew Weymouth makes his way up the inside of Wayne Rothwell into third position. So now once again the top 3 cars in the race are all BMWs and they are all Class A cars. Weymouth though about 4 seconds off the lead.
I can see out our window though, Andy, that the 2 leaders are right together through the chicane now. The gap was down to less than a second between the 2 leaders. We're watching a 116 trophy battle there, which it looks great fun, and that's the number 2 car going through. There is that battle that we were just watching, so we'll try and pick up who's involved there. That is the number 10 car of Lewis, White and Turner that was involved in the battle that we could see there on screen. But it's the 231 car that he was battling with that has just had a spin. So that's John Coburn, who's made a mistake at the Jim Clark S. He's spun around, he's not hit anything fortunately, and he's able to rejoin the circuit. Yeah,
that's down at the complex at the end of the lap that he's rotated. He rejoins just in front of Chris Morton. So Chris Morton's back out in the Vauxhall Corsa, several laps down, and with no chance of getting a really good result, but at least he can test the car, shake it down, make sure that everything is now working as it should be. And having had that spin, incidentally, John Coburn is now bailing for the pit lane. There's quite a lot of smoke coming from the front left corner of that car, I noticed. So I wonder whether or not that was the cause or the effect of the off, I don't know. There is Hugo Holmes rejoining the circuit out of the window, though. I can see we've had a change for second plate because Matthew Weymouth is on an absolute mission now. He's driven around the outside of Darren Ball through the middle part of the complex, and now as they come onto the start-finish line, is challenging for the race lead. Darren Ball dives for the pit lane. It's side by side for the lead of the race, though. There they are. The blue car, Matthew Weymouth, on the outside line, had the race lead at the line by 5/100ths of a second. Andy Marston, though, will try and fight back up the inside if he can, and he does, and holds on to the race lead. Weymouth back up the inside for Hawthorn, still their way through, but where did he pull that lap time from?
Well, that is incredible, isn't it? So Matthew Weymouth has done a 1:39.47. No one else has done less than a 1 minute 40. 1 minute 43, no, 1:42.3 I think is the next best lap from Darren Ball. So that's quite incredible. Side by side once again, down the back straight. Matthew Weymouth on the outside line for Tower. We've been here before. It didn't work out well. This time he saw Paul sort of back in behind Matthew Weymouth. They're just about to get in among the 116s as well to come up and lap them. Better exit from Tower, I thought, there for Weymouth. Can he convert that into an attack, maybe up in towards Sunny? But they are going to catch some of the 116s before they get there. Up towards Barcroft, and then Sunny they will go. On the 11th lap of the race, it's one of the Team Brit cars that they are about to catch, which keeps well out of the way to the left-hand side of the circuit. I think that's the car of Richard Newton, possibly, that's being lapped. Headlamps flashing now for the race leader Andy Marston, just to make sure that these cars, that's Alan O'Neill, know that the race leader outright is coming through. It's going to get very busy for traffic at the moment as we've got Wayne Rothwell, who's been into the pits and heading back out again.
Yes, indeed. So we're waiting for the Porsches are going to come out about together, but I think that Hugo Holmes is in front still. So he is, in fact, now in front as the race leader dives for the pit lane. So Andy Marston into the pit lane from the race lead. The timing graphic has him second because he was second place at the start of the lap. But with the inside line into Clervaux, he was able to hang on. That means that Matthew Weymouth goes through into a clear race lead now. But it's going to be fascinating to see how these different strategies work out. Was it beneficial to stay out for an extra few laps?
I'm not even sure we'd mention that Darren Ball's into the pit lane as well, but certainly he is. The 125 car that was also involved in that lead scrap a moment or two ago.
Yes, so 2 of the leading BMWs have pitted then. The Porsche battle, well, there is the black Cayman, and that is Wayne Rothwell. He has come out behind Hugo Holmes' Boxster, I noticed. So the Boxster has gained what was before the pit stops about 3rd or 4th position they were battling for. So there has been a change between those 2. There in the pit lane on the split screen is the erstwhile race leading BMW M4 of Andy Marston. I suppose for Matthew Weymouth now, his priority is to get a few really good laps in and try to leapfrog Marston during this pit stop window.
Meanwhile, on screen we've got our leader in the 116 trophy. That's number 67, Bobby Trundley, in the Team Brit entered car. Bobby, who had a great time in his first ever car race at Brands Hatch. He won it. He is racing, I'll say, with Team Brit, and you can see in the busy pit lane Darren Paul's car being pushed back by the Rutec International Racing Team to be allowed back out into the race. But there is Trundley pushing really hard, as you can see.
Yes, and the second place 116 trophy car has pitted as well. That's the number 3 car of Howard Hunt to hand over to Ethan Rogers. Darren Ball, meanwhile, has rejoined behind Hugo Holmes in the Porsche Boxster. So Hugo is, having made a really good start at the initial start of the race, is now also playing this pit stop strategy pretty well as well. He has got out in front of Darren Ball, and at this rate could be challenging for the race lead by the end of the pit stop window. There goes Chris Morton. Behind him is Bobby Trundley there, the white blue team Brit car, which is leading the GAZ Shocks 116 trophy element of the race by a slightly increased margin now after the number 3 car pitted. It's actually going to be Lewis Whiten Turner, son of Paul Whiten, who he shares that car with, moves into second place in the class, but having not yet made his pit stop.
Yeah, Paul Whiten it is that will take over for the second part of the race then, as we are about 6 minutes away. Oh, and off goes Matthew Weymouth. Oh. He's had another spin at Tower Corner. It's the second off he's had there in the space of about 10 minutes, and this time it doesn't cost him a place, it seems. There's no one else really around him, but it costs him quite a bit of time, and so Weymouth has a second spin. That's a great shame. Now, I think he's actually still in the lead of the race, isn't he? With everything else that's been going on. It's the Pierces that are in second place at the moment on the road, but we really need for these pit stops to shake themselves out before we really know what the running order is going to look like for the second part of the race. Well,
of those that are pitted, it's definitely Hugo Holmes that is in front from Darren Ball and, by my reckoning, Wayne Rothwell in the Cayman. But for Matthew Weymouth, I just said that he needed to push on now that he was freed from behind the M4 of Andy Marston, who was no doubt holding him up before the pit stop window, or before he made his pit stop, I should say. But that spin has now undone any advantage he may have gained.
Let's see if we can hear from Josh Barrett down in the pit lane. Possibly not just at the moment.
Well, we'll hopefully get through to Josh in a moment or two, because he is, I think, down there, isn't he, with some of the drivers possibly who have completed their first stint now. But there is Darren Ball, and there off in the distance, the white and red Porsche. That is the car that is at the lead of the queue of cars that have pitted now. So that essentially is the fight for the race lead in a way. And there is the race leader, Matthew Weymouth, who has not yet stopped. Into the pit lane comes the 316 car. It's Andrew Waters to hand over to very experienced racer Ivan Mayers.
Let's go down to Josh in the pits.
Thanks, Ian. Lots of drivers changing tyres, and a lot of them started on the wet tyres, and you can see here the less tread, so therefore the drier tyres are being put onto a lot of the cars, including Andy Marston's BMW, Darren Ball's team as well, doing that. And of course they're not necessarily getting it done in the minimum pit stop times. They're losing time at trying to gain it on better tyres as the track dries out.
Thanks, Josh. It's interesting to hear that we are having that change as well. We didn't necessarily anticipate that would be the case, but I guess with 20 minutes of the race just under still to go, there is a chance to make up that time that you'll lose in the pit lane out on track. Yeah, it's not a full slick that they're going on to, but it's, as Josh said, a tyre with slightly fewer treads in it, which is closer to a dry weather track day tyre, and yeah, that tyre change takes a while. We don't have any Formula 1 style 2-second pit stops here, but they're hoping that any time lost by the longer pit stop will be gained by the fact that the conditions are now more in favour of their tyre choice. Just going through a shot there a moment ago, you could see the Alex Hall Nova, which has just headed down towards Tower Corner. I don't think that's been in yet to hand over to Pip Hammond. As into the pits then comes our race leader. He can get the grass cleared out of his radiator as well while he's here. That is number 29, Matthew Weymouth. He's had a couple of moments that have taken him off onto the grass at Tower Corner, but he now is into the pit lane, and he, like the majority of the front runners, is going solo in this race as well, so it's a consistent driver all the way through the race. Yeah, and that's helpful with the changing conditions as well, because he'll of course not need to warm up or get acclimatised to the conditions. They'll be more or less the same as they were when he came in, but I wonder whether or not they're going to choose to change tyres. They're too far down the pit lane for us to see it out of the commentary box. What I can see out of the commentary box is a VW Golf going the wrong way, and that is the John Garner and Paul Huxley shared car, which had that 10-second penalty to serve in the pit lane as a result of their success last time out at Donington Park, and that car has rejoined after a harmless spin. And I think possibly we can go down to Josh again.
Thanks, Ian. Got Andy Waters out here he's out one of the BMWs, the Ivan Mayers 330. How was it for you?
A little bit slow, but a lot of fun. No, it's good. I like the wet, so a bit of ABS would have been handy. I kept lunging on the brakes, but I was going to take somebody out if I pushed it too far, so it was good fun.
What are the conditions like?
They're good. Conditions are really good. I can't complain at that.
Do you think that's the new tarmac giving a lot more grip off than what I had before last year?
Definitely, yeah. I've not raced here for many years, but I've tested here. So, yeah, it's great. It's a nice fast circuit. That's what we like.
Obviously, AW Track Sport, a big supporter of the club, running lots of cars, so busy weekend for you?
I'm always somewhere at a track looking after somebody, but this weekend I wasn't working, so I thought an opportunity to drive, then have a giggle. It's brilliant.
You out again tomorrow?
Yeah, the Enduro tomorrow.
So have you much to learn today, or is it
I can make the car better overnight. I've moved it on already, so got a lot more traction and the car's really well balanced, but I've got a few ideas.
And obviously that's like what Ivor's plan, I guess, having you involved in this weekend.
It gives him a bit of a leg up, yeah. And I'll push him along a little bit as well. That's what he needs. Yeah.
Bit of driver coaching as well as the car setup?
No, Ivor doesn't listen. I've just got to make the car work.
We look forward to seeing you out there tomorrow.
Yeah, I look forward to it.
That was Andy Waters. He was in the 316 BMW 330, the car now that Ivor Mares is aboard.
Okay, and that is in 12th position just at the moment. Thank you very much indeed, Josh. It's Jamie McHugh at the moment that leads the race. That's a good sight to see, isn't it? Chris Morton back out into the race and getting well and truly stuck in. I imagine he's right at the back of the field. Let's just see how far he's shown 33rd and 8 laps down on the screen after his pit stop, after that start line incident. But the Corsa, very rapid car indeed, just ahead on track at the moment of Chris Heathcote's his fellow Bexley-based driver, fellow mechanics, Clio. He made his debut at Brands Hatch just a couple of years ago and put his roof in qualifying, but it's all been on the up since then. Going through shot now in that Ginetta. Russell Douglas it now is, one of our fellow commentators, who's out in the Ginetta, having taken that over from Chris Fellows, as the pit lane window is shortly to close. So Jamie McHugh is going to shortly need to make his stop if he's not indeed already, which I don't think he has. And a moment there, and that's for the Exige, isn't it? That's the 101 car.
Oliver Crease in it now, I think, isn't it?
It is. Simon Middleton started that car, but Oliver Crease in it now, as you say.
So what we've got here then is Jamie McHugh, the race leader, has not pitted, but then Hugo Holmes, second place, has. So Holmes is the de facto race leader. Matthew Weymouth there, the blue and orange BMW, is second. Wayne Rothwell's black Porsche Cayman is third. And Andy Marston, who was leading the race before the pit stops, is down in fourth position. So despite the spin for Weymouth, but he's still essentially going to come out of this in second position and within about 2 or 3 seconds or so of the race leading Boxster.
You can see up on 11th place at the minute is Bobby Trunty, but he has only just come in to make his pit stop. So he was leading the 116 trophy class, but he now has pitted. So too has the overall race leader. So Jamie McHugh, number 25, in the Porsche 944, has had his moments of glory at the top of the timing screens, and he's now headed in into the pit lane. The pit lane closed board is now out though, so we'll put a little question mark by that one. Yeah,
you're sometimes allowed to pass that board once, aren't you, in some championships, but I'm not sure what the ruling is here. We'll hear in due course, I'm sure, if there's a penalty to come. There is the Porsche 924 in the pit lane, and Jamie McHugh, who is not sharing the driving duty, so he will be back out again for the second stint of the race in a moment or two. Chris Morton there, in behind the number 60 BMW. Now Jeff Piercy has taken over from Lee Piercy in that black and fluorescent yellow BMW. A car off at the complex, which is the compact, isn't it, Ian?
It's Jonathan Atkinson, number 57, who has had a spin down there at the complex, out of the sight of our cameras, fortunately for him. So we are now 13 3/4 minutes away from the end of the race. We've got, though, a chance now to head down to the pit lane once again to hear more from Josh.
Thanks, Ian. Got Amanda Black out, one of the Ginettas. How was your stint?
Really, really interesting. I absolutely hate the rain. So when it starts raining and it's that sort of, do we go for dries, do we go for wets, it was really challenging. But I thought I had a good start, and then there was a staller right at the front, and then everybody sort of goes around it, so that was a bit leery. And then it was just trying to settle into a routine before handing over to Ian.
Obviously, Ginetta is much lighter than most. Is that round here?
It's not too bad actually, but I've only done sort of 6 laps this morning and then a practice session about 4 years ago.
Right.
So I am actually still learning the circuit, but it's one of the very few circuits I've not actually raced at yet. So I've now ticked that box, which is awesome. And then just fingers crossed it's a bit drier tomorrow.
Obviously that was the idea of practicing, I guess, in this race, but the conditions may not have helped if it is dry tomorrow.
It is, but I think the forecast is still marginal now for tomorrow, so it could actually end up being very good practice. But yeah, it's good fun. I really like the circuit. It's quite quick round the back, and there's some big challenges, so fingers crossed for tomorrow.
I think you done your first 750 Mo Club race last year, so now back again this year, enjoying it?
Yeah, so we did Snetterton last October because we got the car late and thought we'll give it a bit of a practice. Then was hoping to do the full year this year, but was number 10 reserve for Donington. Just couldn't believe it. So we're sort of dipping in and out of Roadsports and Club Sports, and then hoping to do a full season next year. So really good.
So I think you did a lot of Caterham racing in the past. So how's the Ginetta? How's that different to the Caterham?
They are actually fairly similar because they haven't got the power generally and they're light, but this time you see when it's raining you don't get wet and that's a big advantage now. We've actually got a roof over us because in the Caterhams they just get absolutely soaked. So yeah, no, they're good fun actually. Really enjoying it.
Good to see you here and good luck for tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
That's Amanda Black out the number 177 Ginetta G40.
Thanks so much. In the meantime, we've had a change of lead. It was Hugo Holmes in the Porsche that was leading after the pit stops, but now Matthew Weymouth has gone through. He took the lead coming out of Tower on lap number 17, and he was 2.5 seconds clear, Andy, by the end of the lap.
Yeah, ironically, the corner that caught him out twice and sent him onto the grass is the corner that he got a really good exit a lap ago and overhauled the Porsche, which he has been quicker than all race long, but hasn't been able to consistently run that pace. There is Wayne Rothwell in the 4th place Porsche Cayman. And across the line in amongst this group is the 8th place BMW. There, the black and yellow number 60 car of Jeff Piercy up the inside of the Toyota MR2 of Pete Seeley, I think that is. That is not for position, the BMW lapping the Toyota MR2. They're running in different classes, of course, but Piercy is second. No, that was for position, wasn't it?
For position,
yeah,
yes.
Different classes still, but it was for 8th place. Sorry, apologies there. With that many cars and that many classes out there, it can get confusing. But yeah, he has gone through and now is there for only a couple of places behind the class leader.
Pete Seeley leading Class D then, but a little bit further back, about 13 seconds behind, is Pip Hammond now in the Nova. He's a very quick driver, we know that. Double stock hatch Class B champion, the 2017 Porsche 924 champion as well. So watch out, because Pete Seeley in that 78 MR2, I think we'll find he is caught before the end of the race by Pip Hammond in the Vauxhall Nova. I think I keep calling it a Vauxhall Corsa for some reason, but it is the Vauxhall Nova for him. Meanwhile, I think we need to watch out for Andy Martin as well, because he's lapping in the 1:38 now. He's just put in a 1:38.13, which is the fastest lap of the race. He is going to be chasing after Hugo Holmes.
Yeah, who is already 6 seconds behind the race leader, and Hugo not in the same class again as those BMWs. Oh, that was contact as Pete Seeley tried to get back up the inside of Jeff Piercy for 8th position. Pete doesn't really need to be doing that because, as you said, Pip Hammond is coming. He was about 2.5 seconds quicker than Seeley on the previous lap, and we'll be able to see him very shortly, I think, in the background of this shot, the red and white Nova. There it is. So it's the length of the straight between Sunny Out and the entrance to the complex that separates the top two in Class D. Pete Seeley was the top Class D car in qualifying, but only about 4/10 or 3/10 actually quicker than the Pip Hammond and Alex Hall car. You'd have to imagine it was Pip that set the lap time. Right now, though, he is the quicker of the two, and in fact now Seeley under pressure from Christian Heathcote in the Renault Clio. This is all for position, and Heathcote is chasing down the BMW of Piercy for 2nd place within Class C.
Yeah, 8th, 9th and 10th, those three, and we'll see what the gap is between Seeley and Hammond as they come through this time. We need it to update itself on the screen. It's about, 9 seconds now between Seeley in 10th and Hammond in 12th. So that could get spicy before the end on that lap. Hammond did a 1:45.49. Seeley did 1:49.63. So it's about 4 seconds a lap faster on that lap.
We've had a change for 2nd in class there as well. The Clio is now ahead of the BMW, so Christopher Heathcote into 8th place overall, ahead of the number 60 BMW. Change for position inside the top 10, and also change for 2nd place in Class C. Jamie McHugh in the Porsche, though, is over 30 seconds ahead of them in the class lead, so that may be as good as things get for Christopher Heathcote's Renault Clio.
Quick check on the GAZ Shocks 116 trophy, and you can see there number 67 Bobby Trundley showing in 17th place on your screen, and he is still ahead of Ethan Rogers now, who's taken over the number 3 car from Howard Hunt. You're watching on screen Pip Hammond in the Vauxhall Nova. He's got some of those 116s behind him now that he's just got past the car that he raced to that he raced subsequent to taking his Classic Stock Hatch Championship titles. This is the one he's aboard now, and it is brought out on special occasions these days, effectively. But he now is doing his best to close in on Pete Seeley, and certainly that gap is coming down. So the possibility here of a Class D win for the Nova, I think. 7 3/4 minutes of the race left to go. There's the Ginetta. That's the 177 car. Ian Anderson now. We heard from Amanda Black, who took control of that car for the first part of the race. And that is running outside the top 20 at the moment. In 21st position, in fact. Just outside what you can see on your screens there.
May have just gained a place though, because the car directly behind him is the number 3 of Ethan Rogers, which is second place in the 116 trophy and was 20th at the line. So I think that maybe the Ginetta has just broken into the top 20 overall. Out of my window I can see it's nose to tail for second place coming through the hairpin. Hugo Holmes in the Porsche Boxster has the BMW M4 of Andy Marston breathing down his neck, and I think that there's going to be little really that the Class B Porsche can do, and yet through already has gone the BMW by the time they cross the start-finish line. So Andy Marston's second position, 13.8 seconds off the race leader, but how do his lap times compare to those of the leading BMW of Matthew Weymouth?
Well, on the last lap, Marston did a 140.77, but of course was busy trying to get past Hugo Holmes. Weymouth did a 141.19. In terms of their best lap times, Marston's is about a second better than Weymouth. He is, 13, 14 seconds behind, 6.5 minutes to go. Doesn't really add up, does it?
No, unless there's some traffic for Weymouth, unless he goes off at Tower Corner again, which would not be unprecedented. I'm sure he's got it all under control now, though, and the circuit is starting to try. They'll all be therefore delighted to see that it's actually getting a bit more overcast again overhead now. That brightness that was around at the start of the race is fast disappearing, so maybe another sting in the tail as far as weather is concerned. But yeah, barring any issues, Weymouth should be good for the victory. Marston second, Hugo Holmes third. There is the 172 Renault Clio, Christopher Heathcote. Now he is, he's about 40 odd seconds, isn't he, behind anybody else? So yeah, 8th place, definitely as good as things will get for him. Then, though, it is Ivor Mayers next in the 116 car, the car that he shares with Andy Waters, the BMW 330, and he is now into 3rd place in class, ahead of Jeff Pearcey in the fading number 60 BMW.
Race leader going across the line again with 5.5 minutes to go. That's Matthew Weymouth, so he is looking in good shape at the moment, but it'll be interesting to just keep an eye on that gap between himself and Andy Marston, because Marston's about to go up to the line now. We reckon it has come down, and it's down to 11.1 seconds, so it's come down by about 2.5.
Yeah, now that's more like it, isn't it? It's still not quite enough, but of course, if he gets himself to the point where Weymouth can see him in his mirrors, then he might be able to force a mistake out of the race leader. Marston will be ruining the fact that he didn't have this pace earlier on, but it's clear that that is one of the cars that is benefiting as the conditions improve.
And we were just about to see, as they're heading out of Tower Corner, I think it was, that the 2 Class D leaders are about to get together. That's the MR2 of Pete Seeder, number 178, and the number 71 Pip Hammond car as well. So those two are about to get together. We'll see if we pick those up in a moment. Darren Ball, I think, has now cleared both of those. Yes, he has, and he is up into 11th place as a result. He might, well, he should catch, if he hasn't already, the Pearcey car before much longer.
I think he's already gone past it, yeah. So for whatever reason, Jeff Pearcey's struggling at the moment. I think Pete Seeley has gone past him as well, actually, or is doing so now through the complex, so that will knock the Pearcey car well outside the top 10.
Now we've got a car between the 2 Class D leaders. We're about to have 2 cars between the 2 Class D leaders, actually, because Stephen Cunniff now is between Pete Seeley and Pip Hammond, who are just heading down the start and finish straight. Those 2 cars are, the quick car now gets through, so it's going to leave the 2 Class D cars together. There is Seeley on the right-hand side of the shot, and there is Pip Hammond, you could just see making his way down the straight towards Clervaux towards him. So there's only about 1.6 seconds separating that battle now, and there it is. There is Pete Seeley, there is Pip Hammond. It's the Pearcey BMW that's just ahead of them, but here's then the fight, making the way through the chicane, down the straight to, it's a bit of a kink, a left-hand kink on this straight as well, isn't there? Down towards Tower Corner. The MR2 onto the brakes, gets down the inside of Pearcey into Tower, and makes up a place therefore up to, well, that'd be 12th place, won't it?
Yes,
that he takes.
but not for positioning class. The car that he's the most concerned about is the red and white Nova of Pip Hammond, who tries to go around the outside of the BMW into the Jim Clark S's. That, unsurprisingly, did not work, but on the exit, he looks quicker than the BMW again. So that's a fascinating battle that we're watching. Here we go. Still hasn't quite got past Pearcey, so this is now playing into the hands of Seeley, who runs wide onto the grass, though, and this could lose him the class lead. Pip Hammond, he gets back on miraculously, still in front of both of them. Pip Hammond will be incredibly frustrated here that he's not been able to get past Jeff Pearcey's BMW. They've been caught by the overall race leader as well now, Matthew Weymouth, so to add extra complication to this, these three are all battling for position. There's a class lead fight going on as well, and now the race leader, Matthew Weymouth, is trying to get past them without losing too much time to Andy Marston behind him.
Up to the hairpin then with 2.5, just less than that minutes to go, and it is then Pip Hammond still unable to get past that BMW. He's going to get a different BMW go fly past him now. That being the race leader, Matthew Weymouth, who's now 14 seconds-ish clear of Andy Marston in the lead of this race. He gets past Pete Seeley as well down into the Clervaux corner. Seeley wasn't necessarily conceding that position too easily, was he? Probably mindful of the fact that he couldn't really afford to lose too much time with both the Pearcey car and Pip Hammond's car right behind him. Pip Hammond taking a very wide line there, trying to possibly find some grip, possibly just trying to find a way past the BMW ahead of him. That isn't a novice cross on the back of the Pip Hammond Nova, by the way. It's a ginger cross to warn the other drivers that Alex Hall, who had the car in the first half of the race, has a hair of that particular colour. Important for the rest of the field to know, I'm sure. That will definitely affect the way in which they race him. So the Nova being driven like a Vauxhall Nova should be, on three wheels as it came through Tower Corner, but Pip Hammond just doesn't have the legs in a straight line, or does he? He had better traction out of Tower. He's up the inside of Pearcey, finally gets through. But, as off the road goes a BMW at Sunny 316, isn't it? So that is the Ivor Mayor's car. So Andy Waters will be watching on in disappointment from the pit lane, I'm sure. Knowing Andy as I do, I'm sure that he will let Ivor know exactly what he thought of that moment that he's just had. This now, though, does free up Pip Hammond to continue to reel in the class leader. But, Ian, there's less than a minute to go in the race. Yes. Has he got time? I think we're going to get one more lap, aren't we, for the race leader and for this Class D battle now, and the gap's probably a second and a half, something like that, between those two. So a lot of work for Pip Hammond to do. It could be on, though, couldn't it? It could be on. So the race leader is out of the hairpin. He's heading down towards the finish line to start what will be his final lap of this 45-minute race. Yes, the last lap board is now out. But yeah, it's a bit bigger than I thought, that gap between the two Class 2 leaders. There's Pete Seeley, and over the line now goes Pip Hammond, and I'll get the gap on our screens as 2.04 seconds it is.
It was about a second and a half, though, when you saw them out of the window. I think Pip had a bit of a moment at the final hairpin in his push to try and take this class lead. This, remember, is for the fight for the Class D honours that's going on down the back straight. The trouble is for Pip, it's one thing catching the MR2, but he's not quite as quick as the Toyota in a straight line, and it's very difficult to overtake a car that is quicker than you on the straights. As they head through Tower, the race leader is already heading up towards the Jim Clark S's. There is the second place BMW, number 7 of Andy Marston, who's about 12 seconds back. He has been gaining on Weymouth, but Matthew, he says, hopefully with a half a lap to go, looks to now more or less have this one in the bag, Ian.
Well, he has negotiated Tower Corner, which has been his sticking point during the course of this race. He's up at Sunny now, so 2/3 of the way around the lap. Matthew Weymouth then, who was second to Paul Cook in the opening race of the season by 2/3 of a second. That was on the Brands Hatch Indy circuit, so it looks like he's going to go one better here. And the man from Great Yarmouth in the Team Mad Motorsport car is going to come home for its first win of the season in the TEGIWA Roadsports Series featuring 116 trophy race. Down towards the hairpin he goes for the final time, just catching Ivor Mayor's there. Will probably sit in behind him as they go down to the line, or maybe he won't. Up the checkered flag though, and it is victory for Matthew Weymouth in the second race of the season for the TEGIWA Roadsports Series.
Yeah, great drive that was after 2 spins, or 2 offs at least, down at Tower. Did a really good job. Pete Seeley hangs on to the Class D victory, despite a personal best lap being set by Pip Hammond on the final lap. It wasn't quite enough for him to overhaul the Toyota MR2, though, for the class victory. So there, Matthew Weymouth then, your overall winner. Andy Marston 12.2 seconds back. Hugo Holmes is going to come home 3rd, I think, isn't he, Ian? And that will be a really good drive from 12th on the grid. He was only the fifth highest qualifying Class B car on the grid as well, and yet he's going to come home a victor by a pretty healthy margin in the end. A lot of that work done during the pit stops.
It was, so that's a really good drive from Hugo Holmes, possibly also perhaps liking these conditions a little bit more that we had. Started wet, and I don't think they're fully dry, are they? But they certainly have dried out compared to what they were. We are still waiting for our fourth place man to come through. He's just coming through the hairpin now. That's going to be Wayne Rothwell in the number 69 Porsche Cayman. Over the line he goes now. There you can see him just ahead actually of Jamie McHugh. Our Class C winner was only about 3/4 of a second behind him in the end. That was a very good drive from him. Also two for the number 62 car, Liam Hamilton. Oh, a spinner.
That is Paul Whiten, former Fun Cup racer. Teamed up with Anthony Reid, in fact, for a season or two in the Fun Cup, but he has rotated the BMW. A harmless spin, though, and he will be able to rejoin.
Absolutely. Last few cars are coming through then. In the 116 trophy, by the way, the GAZ 116 trophy, it has been a win for Bobby Trundley, number 67 in 19th position overall, Ethan Rogers second, and just it is the waiting to see who's going to be third, because you mentioned Whiten having that spin that may have promoted somebody else up a place within the 116 trophy. We'll wait and see if that's the case or not. The next car through is number 10, which is, it is Paul Whiten. So Paul Whiten it is. I think by the fact everyone else has gone a lap down, or another lap down, Whiten does manage to hold on for the victory.
Yeah, BMW Compact Cup racer Alan Caulfield was in the fourth place, number 5 BMW, the car that he shares with Anthony Seddon. So they, as you say, were a lap further back. Confirmation of the result then, Weymouth with the victory, Marston in second. They were the top two Class A cars as well, that's right. Then third position for the Hugo Holmes Porsche, which also wins its class. Jamie McHugh in fifth was a class winner. So too Pete Seeley, who we saw being chased down by Pip Hammond there for the Class D honours in the closing stages, just managing to hang on. And the final class winner was Bobby Trundley down in 19th place overall for the lead 116 trophy car, having started 28th overall, so stayed out of trouble, showed some good pace. There are the rest of the 116 trophy runners. So it was the number 3 car of Howard Hunt and Ethan Rogers that was second, and Paul and Lewis Whiten were third. Lewis Whiten Turner is Paul's son, and they are on the podium in third position. A great race that though, Ian, and Matthew Weymouth even will have a few stories to tell, I think, after what was an eventful 45 minutes of racing for him. Despite the moments though, he has been able to come home a race winner here in the second round of the TEGIWA Roadsports Series with the 750 Motor Club at a damp and greasy and overcast Croft. But in drying conditions, it is Matthew Weymouth that has taken the victory, despite, of course, a 10-second penalty in the pit lane as well. So he really did have to overcome everything in that race. He takes the helmet off. He will receive the winner's garland from James Winstanley and now head over to Josh Barrett down in the pit lane.
Thanks, Andy. Matthew Weymouth, our race winner. It was a busy race out there. How was it for you, Matt?
Amazing. We didn't bring the wets today. We looked at the weather a couple of days ago and keep watching that, and we said, we'll leave them at home. We're stricter for space and what we can carry being a small four-man team, and we left them at home and we see the weather beforehand. Oh, Jesus, it's not going to be our day. But started, and even on the the dry tyres against the wet guys to start with, I even had the pace. I've had a massive braking issue last weekend and today again, and a shake in the steering wheel going on the race. I locked a wheel, trying to take first place, ended up on the grass, recovered, got back past him, locked a wheel and went off on the grass again. So to get a first place with 2 offs on the grass, chuffed to bits.
And there's some real competition, much newer cars than what you've got.
Absolutely. It's nice to see the old girl still do it. 25 years old, and I'll still do it. I think, I like the wet, I've got to say. We work on a very small budget, some good friends together, we put a lot of heart and soul into it. And, there's some guys with bigger budgets, and fair play to them. If you've got the money to do it, I'd like a nice newer car, but that's what I can afford, and that's won the race today.
Well done. So well done to Matthew Weymouth, and showing that you don't need the newer cars with this power to weight ratio we have in the 750 Motor Club categories. Our Class B winner was Hugo Holmes in his Porsche. Hugo, third overall as well in the Class B Porsche.
Oh, that's absolutely fabulous. Really, really pleased with that. I've had a rookie start. It literally, we just picked it up from the garage yesterday. Hadn't got any setup, so I did a bit of setup in qualifying, so I was a bit aggrieved. I was down in 12th in qualifying. but I think I was second by about the first lap, and nobody was beating me today. It was in my blood, you know. I needed to do it.
And with the sort of the stall at the start, did you manage to avoid all that and gain some places by the sounds of it?
Yeah, it was absolutely fab. It's going to be great in-car footage because I missed one car, then another car was jammed in front of me. I had to go on the grass to avoid all of those. So luckily, with it being so wet, it didn't spin, and I kept the power on and pulled away. So yeah, it was. And there was a great guy in a Cayman who was just in front of me, and I could see if I put the pressure on him, I could beat him, you know. So when I pitted, I came out and just went for it.
Well done.
Thank you.
That was Hugo Holmes, our Class B winner. Class C winner was Jamie McHugh in his older Porsche, the 968, I think. Jamie, class win today. You look like you worked hard.
Yeah, worked hard for that one. Yesterday we were testing and I had the turbo and I blew it up. So I had to drive like a 10-hour drive to go and pick this one up, and he sat there for like 3 years. That was the first time out. So yeah, we're happy.
And I guess you're one of the oldest cars on the grid as well.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. A bit like a barn find, this one.
but going very well, especially in those conditions.
Yeah, it went really well.
Well done.
Yeah, cheers.
That was Jamie McHugh, our Class C winner. We've got Hugo Holmes, our Class B winner. Class A winner was Matthew Weymouth. And we've got our 116 trophy winner over here. That's Bobby Trundley, who's making our way over. So let's grab a word. Well done, Bobby. Another 116 trophy win for you. 2 out of 2.
Yeah, unbelievable, isn't it? Yeah, great race. I mean, a bad start at the beginning, got pinched on the inside while everyone was sorting themselves out. But just worked my way back through, and yeah, pretty much it. Well done.
Very different conditions to Brands Hatch.
Oh yeah, very different. I mean, thanks to Croft having a grippy surface, it's not as bad as what it would have been if it was like the old tarmac. But still, it's really good. It's good fun, actually. Going having a little bit of a slide around in the car. Yeah, it's really great fun.
Well done. We've got a winner's garland for Bobby as well, our 116 trophy winner. And so we've had our top 3 in the Roadsports. So that was top 3 classes. Class A was Matthew Weymouth, Class B, Hugo Holmes, and Class C was Jamie McHugh. That was our 116 trophy winner, which was Bobby Trundley.